Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's the final video on the King's Gambit, for now at least, unless you want something more. And I've spoken in the last few days about what black should do to really capitalize. And we've spoken about taking the pawn, and we've spoken about playing d5. And there's a reason why you have to do this. The alternatives are terrible. Absolutely terrible. You can play number 2, bishop to c5. The advantage already starts creeping back up for white. Why? It's just not a good move. It looks reasonable, right? Because you're developing a piece, you're letting them take, which is kind of like a counter gambit, like we spoke about yesterday. But if they take, queen h4 is devastating, So white would play knight to f3. And now they're threatening to take. And now you don't have the option of taking this. You have to play a move like d6. Because if you do take this, you get slapped away with d4, white gets the pawn back, and they're just better. They're +1. The only move is bishop e6, and then knight to c3 even, just waiting, being patient. White is +1. And that's why the King's Gambit is just awesome if black doesn't know how to play. So you can't just be patient too much. You can't take the pawn. So you have to play d6 in this particular case. But now white's got a couple of options. They can play either knight to c3, just developing, allow you to play knight to f6, and now bishop to c4. And all that white's going to get is this. You can take the pawn, you can't take the pawn, it's fine. In certain lines, you can almost play this like a Vienna and push the pawn up to disallow this bishop from coming in. But, knight to c6, d3, bishop g4, getting it out while you can. Knight to a4 looks to secure this bishop, so you can play short castles. Bishop b6, knight takes b6, a takes b6, and now c3. Short castles, short castles. And this is how the game can develop. And it's a level position, but dynamically speaking, white might be better. You can play, e takes, you can allow them to take this because you get d4 and you're going to get that back. It's an interesting position. But if we go all the way back, of course, black doesn't have to play bishop to c5. There might be other ways to try and decline the gambit. What if you play this with like d6? Knight f3. Knight e takes, and d4. And there's that move again. Now, you've actually accepted this, and you have to play g5. We're back to this g5 move. The most important move in the King's Gambit if you ever take here, because you do not want white getting this back and just having this complete domination in the center of the board. You need to fire rockets. You need to make them commit. You need to make them weaken their king. If you don't do that, and you play any other move, let's say you play knight f6, knight c3, and white is slightly better. And the advantage can just swell and swell and swell because it's a terrible position, because you've surrendered the whole center. Okay, but Matthew, I played d6 so that if takes, takes, and I'm okay. What if I don't take? What if I play, for example, knight to c6, and I just continue to develop? Surely it can't be that bad. Okay, well, I can play, bishop b5 to pin the knight. And now you can play bishop d7, getting rid of the pin, but d3. Now again, there's 2 games or 3 games in the Masters database. The other 2 have gone knight d4. Bishop takes d7 check, queen takes d7, and now knight to c3. Plus 0.6. And you will not find Grandmaster games here. I firmly believe if a Grandmaster doesn't play, maybe not even the opening, but if they don't play a particular line, like d6, right? This position on Leech, as you can see the variations we've covered, has 4.8 thousand games in their Masters database, right? d6 has got 1% of games. Queen h4, 1% of games. Knight f6, by the way, an interesting, trying to get a gambit going with f takes e5 and knight takes here. It's been played, but, by 2500s, but Not recently, and there's 20 games in the database from 4.8 thousand. As black, you've got nothing better than taking this. You really do. You have to take this, or you have to play d5. I need to get rid of those lines. What? Okay, there it is. It's gone. Okay. Sorry, they were irritating me. I apologize. You really have nothing better. So we've looked at bishop c5, we've looked at d6 to a degree. Remember, all the moves will be in the video description. Sorry. What else do you really have? Well, if we're looking down the line, we've looked at d5, we've looked at taking, we've looked at bishop c5, we've looked at, d6. Can you maybe try f6? Because then if takes. No, because now white's got the idea with queen h5. Check. So you absolutely cannot play f6 to try and decline the gambit. d6, as I said, we've looked at. Now again, it's not white taking. Taking is bad because actually in this particular moment, black doesn't take back. Queen h4 check. You always got to be careful about that. So white's got to be very careful. If you're going to play the king's gambit and they decline, you've got to be very cautious about taking. That's why the move knight f3 is so good, because it covers queen h4. It allows you to take because you put pressure. But again, if they, for example, play something silly like bishop here, it's a bad move, but you can't think, oh, I win a pawn in the center of the board. Queen h4 check. You have to play g3, and now here. Rook. And if you don't play g3, and you go here, you get forked. And it's just completely lost. So please, you have to be careful as white when you're taking this pawn. Obviously, black won't play bishop d6, but I just needed a move. Here again, it's the engine would like you to go back to try and play a king's gambit accepted, where you take and play g5. But leaving the pawn here and saying to white, you can take, but then I'm stopping d6, or d5 rather. d4, I said all the wrong moves. This is d6, and this is d5. If you want to stop white playing d4. Which is, by the way, just so that you know your openings, that is why you play d5. To stop white playing the immediate d4. Because if you, for example, play the French, white will play d4 and have the central space. And then you'd have to strike back with d5. So you played e4, e5, king's gambit, and now you have to make a choice. If you really don't want to go into this acceptance, the first video we made with g5, where you have to play super aggressively and hang on, you have to respond to white's aggression with your own aggression. Bishop c5 is probably the best. Just because I think d6 is quite bad. You want to develop and then play d6. Playing the immediate d6 blocks out this bishop. White again would play knight to f3, 91% of games. I don't see any reason not to play this move and to play something before it. And now you can play d6 if you really want to decline everything. And now you've got to be aware of white's two plans. We've already discussed knight to c3. For example, if I just show that now again, knight to c3, knight f6, bishop to c4, stuff like this, hey? Knight c6, d3, so on and so forth. The game develops like this, where black gives up the bishop pair, but kind of has a more stable game, a quieter game. But white doesn't have to commit to knight to c3. They can go with a different plan, which is to still try and build in the center for d4. And now here, you've got to be very awake as black. The engine, which you can trust to some degree, but it's not very good at openings, would like you to play f5. In the style of like the Yanish. Not the Yanish, sorry, I can't remember the name of the opening, but it's in the Spanish. What's it, like an S or something, sorry. I've completely forgotten and blanked. It would like you to play like this. That is a move. You can play f5. You can also just play knight to f6. Which develops nicely, puts pressure on this, and now might make them either second guess d4, and they might play d3, but white's going to play d4. It's probably best to play takes once, c takes d4, And now bishop b6. Why? Because there's no need to do anything more. Do not try and grab this and go for tactics. Now knight to c3 defends that. And white's just got a beautiful center. But black's not too bad because you can strike back with moves like c5. Or you can play c6 and then d5 and build in the center. Knight always able to come towards there. And you can play short castles without too many problems. e5 now pushing in the center. D takes e5. F takes e5. Now you can take. But knight d5. And you're just in time to get out the way and you'll be sorted. But this position, according to the engine, and according to probably just an eye analysis, which is not a thing, but it's what I'm making up, to a rudimentary evaluation, probably better for white. You know, bishop c4 or bishop g5 if you would rather, and you're going to be fine. You know, knight e7, and, you know, that's what we got. So, recap, the best move, if you're going to try and decline the king's gambit, is bishop to c5. You 100% can try and play d6 and get away with it. I don't like it because you're blocking this bishop. And this bishop is useful because white has pushed the f-pawn, you can sometimes delay white castling and give yourself time to get set and give yourself time to really land some counter punches as black. If you are playing white and you do not see them take this pawn, you can, you know, breathe a sigh of relief. If you see them play f6, you win on the spot, you just take. And they cannot take back. The best move is probably knight to c6. And now you can play, you know, bishop e5, you know, bishop c5, and, you know, bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and something like queen h5 check, because g6, and then you've got queen h4. And you're threatening to take that, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. There is a way you get out of it. But you've got to be so careful. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is the final video on the King's Gambit series and opening repertoire. I hope you enjoyed this collection of videos. And yeah, tomorrow we'll be moving on to a different topic. So I look forward to it. Let me know how you found the video. Thank you so much.